So I think what we'll start with this morning is the overview of your actual survey results. So Teresa and Dale will walk you through that. And then Dr. Shalak will come in afterwards and help talk about next steps in interpreting the data and what it will mean for your organization. So over to you guys.
In terms of the survey overall, across all the 7 service providers that were involved, there was 329 individuals represented in the sample. Out of that 329, there was 25 individuals from Milieu. We had a very high response rate, 86%, so great response rate. I think it was probably the highest. Yeah, I think it was the highest across all 7 service providers, actually. And in terms of the sample, out of those 25 individuals, 14 were represented by proxy respondents.
But we had all the intention to have as many.
Yeah,
As it rolled out, there was some confusing situations.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
And that's, as Teresa said, that's something
had to change.
yeah, and it was learning for us. You know, the 44% proxy was a little higher than we were expecting, so it's something that we'll talk about and learn from each other and look at the range and how did those with low proxy rates get it lower and what happened.
And there might again be some strategies from other
Yeah.
agencies that we need to tap in, just like you had strategies to get a high response rate.
When you look at your own quality of life results, there's a few things that we think are particularly important to focus on, and some things we think are less important to focus on. You're laughing already. You're just it actually make me feel better. The value of measuring quality of life is really not in comparing your own results to results obtained, whether it's the aggregate or another service provider or another region or whatever. That's really to provide, we provide you with a comparison with the aggregate. That's to provide you with some context. So something that you need to do as a team is look at your scores and look at your, what we're calling the quality of life picture. So not so much those numbers, but what your picture looks like, right? It's kind of high in some areas and lower in other areas. And say, first of all, you know, are there any surprises here? Is this what we expected? If there are surprises, why are they there? We're pretty confident that this instrument is right now sensitive to programming.
Can I ask a question just
Yes.
before we get to the results?
Yeah.
It's kind of a statistical question. And,
Yep.
So when I was looking at, out of the 25, 44% of the people only received daytime supports from us. So if the remaining didn't, and they're with a different service provider, or typically it's home share, the questions, some of the questions relate to home. And how does that reflect on our programming?
I think that's a really great question, Cynthia. I think it's something that a lot of, and one of the providers we worked with yesterday too, they provide only daytime support, so they're saying, well, some of these areas are harder for us to maybe particularly target.
I guess in my concern, and when we get to the results, on some of the domains where we're lower, some of the questions are reflective of things that are happening outside the daytime hours.
2 points. Well, one is that your profile is your profile, you know, and that's to be used by you in whatever way it's going to be corrected. The other thing is when you reach out, you might want to think about, can we reach out and establish partnerships among those agencies or entities like family that are really impacting those results? And then start thinking more about, is there a partnership kind of arrangement that we could make? But to realize that you as an agency are not responsible for that which you have no control. Because I think that's really the question you're asking.
It is the question.
And you're not. If you're providing only day services or part services to individuals, then it almost forces you as an agency to become more partner-oriented with those entities that are also impacting those results.
So here's your picture. Here's Milieu's quality of life picture and profile in terms of your average domain scores. When you look at this, you can see quite clearly some trends that are coming about with those first 3 bars, the areas of well-being, emotional, physical, and material well-being being the highest scores out of the 8, and that's very typical. The 2 lowest areas here for you guys are social inclusion and rights, followed closely by self-determination. Social inclusion and self-determination have been kind of for the region 2 of the lowest areas, so that's fairly typical as well. Those I'm sure you know because you've been looking at the numbers, that when we look at the comparison, you're pretty much on par with the aggregate in all areas except for rights, where you're a little bit lower. And depending on on what happens with the planning with this instrument at the regional level. Any subsequent administration of this instrument will give you data on how those numbers are changing over time, and that's where the real value of it is in terms of the continuous quality improvement, looking at what's happening to those scores over time. So, it's not whether a score starts at a 3 or a 7, it's what happens to that score in 2 or 5 or however many years, depending if that's an area that you're focusing on.
I just wanted to echo that, like, from our perspective, there is no magic number. Like, the 8.5 out of 10 is not the number that you should shoot for. As just to echo what Teresa said, it's, and bringing it back to the conversation about context, you're going to know the areas that you want to focus on, the areas in which you can have the most impact, and it's your information. And as we've said, it's about, once you target a particular area for change, does it change in the direction that you expect?
And just in terms, very quickly, some examples from other jurisdictions, and this is taken from several service providers in the Edmonton region. Staff looking at recruitment, retention, those kinds of issues, and in one case restructuring the recruitment process so that the individuals that are being hired have philosophies or beliefs that align with kind of the quality of life domains, maybe more so than from coming from more of a medical perspective again, and really focusing staff training on those kinds of areas so that staff themselves have a good understanding of the framework and have it in their heads as they're working with individuals on a day-to-day basis.
If a person was really living a meaningful, purposeful life, where do you think the bump would be?
Inclusion.
I think it would be right in personal development and self-determination. If I think of my own personal life, and you were to say, are you living a really high quality of life? I would hope I would be pretty high. It would be more self-actualized.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that this group of people that we're called clients, every bit as human as we are, and probably need a lot of this as well. And I'm just saying, what's your intention? What do you want this thing to look like?
This is a big project, and it really is beginning to address these two terms of effectiveness defined in terms of personal outcomes and efficiency in terms of looking at aggregated personal outcomes. The key thing is that how we look at best practices today is in reference to, do we provide a system of support for people? Professionals are playing different roles in organizations today, and you've noticed that, I'm sure. You're getting less professional services from professionals, is that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And actually we're embracing that.
Exactly, because
we're partnering with professionals to actually build the capacity of our team. So
exactly.
That way
So you're into high performance teams. And partnering from that perspective, and it's absolutely the right way to go. If you want to make a significant impact on your profile, you do two things. You obtain or procure for the individual something meaningful to do. And the more like a real job that is, right, the better. And secondly, get them out into the community. And that's going to, and that'll be more than, that's where the bang for the buck phenomenon is. Part of what we talk about when we talk about utilizing this information is go through those domains, develop high-performance teams, R&D, a team that's composed of the client, the support staff, the professionals that you're interacting with, which is a great idea, and then really talk in terms of, are there some components here that we either can maximize or develop further or expand on in terms of partnerships?
this fits wonderfully with our continuous quality improvement plan. We're CARF accredited, so under the different outcomes, if we apply it not just to a program service area, but we're applying program service outcomes to the people that we're serving directly. So that shift in the lens,
That's what continuous quality improvement is.